I want to talk to you today about spirituality. We're going to have a little spirituality 101 lesson. First of all, I want to tell you what spirituality is and that it's really a part of your being. Um, and when I think of your being, I'm going to think of like, okay, what makes me me, right? So there are four kind of components of my being, Laura. So the first one is my physical being, right? That's my bones and flesh, my body, right? I experience the world around me through my physical being. This is the vessel that I have for that. Second is my mentality. So I look at the world around me with my eyes, right? That's physical. But then that information comes in and I process it, or I hear things, or I read things, or I experience them in some other way. And it comes in, and then that information gets processed in my brain, and I think about it, or I problem solve it, or I have an opinion about it. So that's my mental relationship with everything around me, what I think about things. Then there's my emotional way of being. So beyond what I think about things, I might have emotions around it, right? I might feel anxious, or I might feel nervous, right? And those kinds of emotions then actually go back and have a physical connection, right? So I have this information come in, I experience it physically somehow, in my physical being in the world. My mentality processes it, then it goes to my emotions, and my emotions process it, and then it kind of goes back to my physical being, and I might actually have like a physical response. So if I'm anxious or nervous, maybe I feel it in my stomach, right? Maybe I get a little heartburn. Maybe that's a way uh, that we feel those things. Those things are often involved in our digestive areas. Um, or maybe I'm feeling stressed out, right? Or a lot of pressure. Um, those kinds of things can tense up your muscles, or anger, right? You can kind of feel your whole body gets hot sometimes, or your face gets hot. If we're feeling stressed, we might carry tension in our muscles around our necks, and we might get headaches. Uh, or maybe I'm feeling something that makes me feel joyful or hopeful. Then I might be feeling like kind of my muscles feel kind of buzzy, and I have more energy, right? I get a surge of energy and I smile, right? And you just feel a little bouncy and a little alive, like you've kind of been injected with like some secret serum for energy. That's how we kind of experience those feelings sometimes. Um, so they're all kind of related. Well, then there's a fourth way that we're in connection with the world, how we experience the world, our being, and that's our spirituality. So our spirituality, all three of those other things are kind of like, yeah, there's outside information that affects them, but really it's kind of an internal process, right? It's just me. So spirituality is our relationship with everything that's beyond ourselves, and I mean everything. Now you might be thinking, well, our spirituality doesn't have something to do with God. Well, sure, it has something to do with God if God is something that you hold in whatever's beyond yourself, right? But if you don't hold a concept of God, then it doesn't have God, because you still have a relationship with everything else. And when I say everything else, I mean all humankind. I mean the entire rest of nature, so all other living creatures. I mean all the elements: fire, earth, air, water, um, those elements that are around us, and energies. Those are all kind of energetic things. I also mean all space and time. So we also have a relationship with things that came before us and things that will come after us. We have a relationship with everybody that came before us, and whatever they did in their world, in their experience, in their time affects what we have right now, right? And likewise, whatever we're doing right now affects what's going to come later, and how those people are going to experience life. Not just those people, but also the elements and all other nature. So anything that has a physical manifestation uh, in this world, it's also going to be affected by choices and things that we do right now. We know this, right? So oftentimes we think about ancestors, but sometimes we forget that we're actually ancestors in the making ourselves. So our spirituality connects us not only to people who came before us 10 years ago, 100 years ago. It connects us to people who came 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. And our spirituality likewise will connect us with people that come 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now. So spirituality is our relationship with everything beyond ourself and all of nature, everything. So what I'd like you to do this week, if you can, is spend some time not really doing spiritual practice unless you already do, but what I'd like you to do is just notice your relationships with other, and you will find that you're engaged in these relationships all the time. We just sometimes don't take the time to see them. So when you're gardening this week, if you're doing that, notice your relationship with the earth. If you're taking a walk, notice your relationship with maybe the people that came before you. What was it like for generations before when they were walking in those areas? Generations 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. What was that land like? Look at a tree. Think about what that tree maybe has witnessed in its lifetime, right? If you're sewing masks, imagine your connection to the future through sewing masks. If you're cooking a meal, you can imagine your connection to all of the elements, to the food itself and other folks who helped you get that food, and how that nourishes you for the future. Just kind of like open yourself to an awareness of those connections. And then in the coming weeks, we're going to talk about different spiritual practices. And the reason that this is important is because just like we exercise our bodies and our minds, and that we take care of our emotional well-being, it's also important that we nourish and take care of our spiritual well-being. And this is something that you can do anytime, anywhere, any place, by yourself or with others. So we'll be exploring ways that we can do that in the coming weeks, and hopefully you'll find something that maybe works for you to help nourish your spirit, because it's important that our spirits are nourished right now. And I want to make sure that we're all feeling taken care of and feeling connected. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, be loved, and be loving, and I will see you all soon.